premeditated attack on young kids. It's the summer holes. Schools, of course, aren't there. Parents who work want to put their kids somewhere. Parents who are at home want to put their kids somewhere. And so for these youngsters to go to a little Taylor Swift party, a very normal activity, somebody willfully, deliberately, went in there with a knife, stabbed several youngsters and some of the adults looking after them, and it's now 3 young girls that have died. It is almost unimaginable to think that somebody on a premeditated basis could go and do this. I think it's the most shocking thing that has happened in the country since the Dunblane massacre. I can't think of anything in the intervening years that has shocked people so much, that has led to quite a genuine outpouring of grief on a very, very large scale. TV presenters almost unable to hold back tears. That's how we all feel about this. There are some questions that are unanswered. A Telegraph report said that the man in question had been watched by the authorities. We don't know the truth of that. What we do know is we're told it's a non-terror incident. Indeed, last week, when a lieutenant colonel in Kent in full uniform was stabbed in the street, he's still alive and in a very serious condition. Again, we were told it's a non-terror incident. I'm just asking questions because I'm struck that every time something appalling happens, we're told it's non-terror or it's mental health. There's nothing to worry our little heads about. We will, in the fullness of time, find out more, but given that the perpetrator is 17 years old, we may never find out who this person really is and what his motives were. I'm joined by Dame Andrea Jenkins, former Conservative MP, and Matthew Laza, former Labour advisor. Andrea, it's difficult to put into words how we all feel about this, isn't it?
Absolutely, Nigel. And I think you summed it up perfectly. I mean, I'm a mum to a 7-year-old little boy, and seeing the pictures on the screen there of these beautiful young girls, it must be some sick individual who can go and do that. And it's inhumane. And as you said, there's so many questions that need answering. And I think the truth must come out. I think the community of Southport needs to know the truth.
Well, I think it's broader than that. Matthew, I think there is very interesting, during the election campaign, whenever the issue of law and order came up, and all the police statistics say that violent crime is falling and the world's getting better, I think we view all of that ever so slightly with a pinch of salt. What we do know is the number of young people carrying knives is going up. Most knife crime is not premeditated.
Yeah.
In the way that this
absolutely.
was. There is a difference here.
Absolutely, there's a difference. Yeah, most knife crime is people who are defending themselves, or so-called defending themselves. There's a lot of gang issues around knife crime in our inner cities. And I think this is it's the shocking nature of this in Southport, which is a relatively quiet town, the sort of more affluent suburbs of Merseyside. And I think you're absolutely right to say that it's probably shocked the nation in a way that nothing has since Dunblane, because it's the premeditation that I think really goes. Nobody can comprehend. And we've seen incidents with 2 or 3 people killed by knife attackers and others before, but they tended to be more, even if they're random in the street. The victims were sort of literally at random. If we think about Nottingham, it was a guy rampaging in the street, which is just in recent memory. This is the fact that he targeted children in a way like this, and I think that's what's really hit home, frankly, to everybody in the country. And it is a reminder to all politicians of all parties just how important issues of law and order and antisocial behaviour are, and how it isn't a party political issue in the sense that we should all care about it. Obviously, it's up to different parties to offer solutions.
It's party political in the sense of what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely,
deal with it. I mean, it's very interesting when Keir Starmer went to Southport, and I'm not going to show the clip, but he laid a wreath. Yeah. and he was heckled by a member of the Parliament.
Because the anger is just so visceral. Clearly, people wanted to express that anger, and I think he would understand that, that he's the target because he's the man ultimately in charge. And I think it's important that we do learn the lessons from this, and that nobody on my side of politics wants to. We need to find out exactly what happened, which we will do as the court process goes on, and we need to learn lessons. We need to know. We need to put nothing needs to be brushed under the carpet, however uncomfortable the lessons are.
Before I go back to Dame Andrea, let's just see what was said in the House of Commons half an hour ago with the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper.
What should have been a joyful start to the summer turned into an unspeakable tragedy. 3 young children have lost their lives. BB King, age 6, Elsie Stankham, age 7, and Alice da Silva Aguiar, age 9. The police have released some words that Alice's family have said. Keep smiling and dancing like you love to do, our princess. 6 other children and 2 adults are being treated still for their injuries in hospital.
That was the Home Secretary responding in the House of Commons. Quite emotional words.
Yes.
Quote from one of the parents.
I think everybody wants to know answers, though, don't they? You said there's so many questions there, Nigel. I want to know the background of these individuals, what the motivation was, and also, I want to know how long they've been in the country. I mean, we've seen much of this before.
Yeah.
I
think there was a lot of speculation online last night about who the perpetrator was, what the background was, and I resisted saying anything.
No, of course.
Until we found out the facts. What we do know is that the parents came from Rwanda, were let into the country as refugees at a time, of course, when those horrific massacres were going on between the 2 tribes. They settled in Cardiff. The young man was born in Cardiff and at the age of 6 moved up to the northwest. So we know that he was born in this country of refugee parents.
We don't know the background though, do we?
But we don't know anything about him.
Exactly.
And as I say...
Because he can't be named because of his age.
Because he's 17.
Absolutely, that makes it...
But there was this Telegraph report that he had been under watch by the security services.
Yeah, and we don't know...
Which is severely distressing.
Which is obviously worrying, and those questions will have to be answered as to, how is he being watched, why was he being watched, because this is actually, it's slightly, the attacks that Dunblane, for example, attacks on children like this haven't tended to be directly terror-related in the past, because tends to be that terror targets signs of authority. But so it's interesting to see. It may well be. I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm just saying it's just. We so need to know the answers.
Well, Andrew, you've sat there in the Commons through several of these horrific incidents. Nothing as bad as this. No. How should we define terror?
We should define terror by anything attack on British civilization. And the British culture and way of life.
So ideological.
I think that's one way to do it, yes.
Yeah. I'm joined down the line by Dave Spencer, former Detective Chief Inspector and somebody who is Head of Crime and Justice at the think tank Policy Exchange. Dave, obviously just horrific beyond words. We are attempting tonight on this panel to say... we need some answers. Are we being premature with that, or is that what the nation really needs?
Well, I'm sure you're right. I think you echo what a lot of people will be feeling at the moment. And what I do know is that the police officers involved in investigating this will be conducting a meticulous investigation to try and get those answers, of course, primarily for the justice system through the criminal courts when that inevitably gets to that point. But of course, the family, the local community and everyone will be looking for those answers. And that is what the police will be trying to do. And they will have been working through the night last night. They'll be doing the same again today. And one of my reflections as I think about my former colleagues who will be investigating this horrific incident in Southport is that British policing comes in for a lot of criticism, and certainly has done in the past. But what British policing is genuinely world class at, and I mean genuinely amongst the best in the world, is when these very horrific, very serious incidents happen. This is what British policing really is excellent at. And I have no doubt in my mind that while it may take time, we will get those answers in due course.
I don't doubt that, Dave, for one moment. But I remember the incident that took place just over a year ago in Hartlepool. There was a triple murder. There were virtually immediate restrictions put on in terms of what I could say on this programme, what anyone could report. And then it turns out 6 months later, we find out the identity of the perpetrator, which, had that information been released at the time, would have led to considerable outrage in Hartlepool and perhaps even demonstrations on the streets. And I don't know the particulars of this case any more than you do. I just get a general feeling that when these horrendous things happen, we're not quite being told the full truth. It's as if we're almost being protected from ourselves.
Yeah, certainly one of the principles that should be at the heart of our justice system is open justice. The public are entitled to know what is happening in our criminal courts, and you're absolutely right to raise that. I think if I can mention one of the other issues as well, you talked about some of and it goes to the openness issue about the sense of increasing crime and actually what the data says and these sorts of things. Certainly, when you look at the crime data, what we see is actually knife crime over the last 10 years has increased substantially. So about 10 years ago, there were about 26,000 offences in a year. The most recent figures are about 50,000. So over the last 10 years, we've seen a substantial increase in knife crime. And, this absolutely needs to be a priority for the new government and for the criminal justice system as a whole.
Well, unless we stop and search on the streets at random without fear of being told we're targeting various communities on the basis of their class or ethnicity, we'll never grip this, will we?
Well, stop and search. I mean, you are absolutely right. Stop and search is a key part of this, and there are other tactics involved as well. But stop and search has to be right front and centre of the solution to the knife crime epidemic. That goes along with sentencing requirements for those caught carrying knives. It goes with programs called focused deterrence, which is about targeting those who are involved in serious criminality. The reality is that we now have a pretty clear idea about how to tackle knife crime. And there's all sorts of things through enforcement, through prevention, through the criminal justice system. We now actually have a pretty clear idea how to do it. But what we need is a government and a criminal justice system who actually get on with it and do it.
Who actually does it. No, I agree. Dave Spencer, thank you for joining us. Now, it was a Taylor Swift party, and Taylor Swift has put out a statement tonight on this, just saying how bitterly she regrets what's been done, and quite right too.